Chapter 8, Organizing and Outlining Your Speech. So, the first step of the process is to determine a topic. Selecting a topic lays the foundation for creating your speech. So, topics to consider are things that are in the news, current events, whether it be globally or locally, interest of the speaker. So, what are you interested in? What are challenges you've faced? If it's something that's personal to the speaker, then that adds credibility for you as the presenter. What are you an expert at? What is your expertise? And what's relevant for the audience? So also consider the rhetorical situation. So a combination of factors that make speeches and other conversations or discourse meaningful and a useful way to change the way something is. So considering the situation and the reason why you're there. So ask yourself, what do I care about the most? The next step is to develop a purpose statement. For the purpose of our class, the purpose will be assigned. So you'll either persuade or you'll inform. So the purpose statement clearly states what you would like to achieve. They guide you as you prepare your speech. So you have a general purpose statement, which lays out the broader goal of the speech, while the specific purpose statement describes precisely what the speech is intended to do. So general purpose would be to inform, persuade, inspire, celebrate, mourn, or entertain. And a specific purpose expresses both the topic and the general speech purpose in action form and in terms of the specific objectives that you hope to achieve. So the thesis statement, which oftentimes is the same thing as your specific purpose statement, is the statement that you'll share with your audience that specifically says what you're going to do in that presentation. So a thesis statement encapsulates the main points of a speech in just a sentence or two and is designed to give the audience a quick preview of what the entire speech will be about. So the thesis statement should be very easily identifiable for the audience. It needs to be succinct and it should sum up the main points that you will present. The thesis statement should reflect the general purpose statement of your speech. So a thesis statement is very simple. Let's see if a thesis statement is very simple and it should also include your main points. Or your main points will follow directly after. So for example, for the sample topics that I have online for you guys, I did a sample speech on migraines. So the thesis would simply be, as I continue in this presentation today, I'm going to tell you about migraines. We will talk about types, causes, and treatments. So that all should be at the beginning of your speech. We'll talk about what order you'll have everything at the beginning shortly, but it should happen in the introduction portion of your speech so that it's very clear to your audience what you're going to talk about. Now, if it's a persuasive topic, you might say, as I continue today, I'm going to tell you the things that I believe are keys to being a successful college student. As I continue, I will discuss time management, organization, and self-care, and explain to you why I believe these are behaviors that you need to adapt into your everyday life in order to be the most successful college student you can be. So you see my purpose in there. It's beyond just informing you. It's to convince you to change a behavior or to reinforce a behavior. So main points. Every presentation should have 3 main points. Some will say 2 to 4. I think 3 is the best number. The main points of any speech are the key pieces of information or arguments contained within the talk or presentation. Main points are broad and can encapsulate in just one sentence the big ideas you want to convey to your audience. For this course, your presentation should have preferably 3 main points. Speeches can contain 2 to 7 in general, but you always have to think about your time requirements and can I do justice to 7 main points in a 5-minute speech? And the answer to that would be no. Main points don't stand alone. Instead, speakers use subpoints and details to substantiate their main points. It offers examples, statistics, facts, anecdotes, other information to contribute to the audience's understanding. Organizational styles. So there's a few informative presentation organizational styles you can choose from. Now, the important thing when you're working on your outline and you're working on your speech is to remember, number one, you are writing for the ear. So when you write for the ear, you want to make sure everything is very clear cut and it's very easy to follow, because your audience only has one opportunity to hear what you're saying and to understand it and for it to have an impact on their life. So think about the opposite. Sometimes when we're in English class and we're writing a composition paper, I don't know about you guys, but when I was in college, I was like, okay, how long and fancy can I make this sentence? How many really big complicated words can I add in there to sound like I know what I'm talking about? And so sometimes our papers might get kind of wordy when we're writing an essay or a composition for someone to read. Whereas when you're writing a speech, it needs to be simple. Simple is better. And it also needs to be clearly organized so that your audience can clearly follow what you're doing in your speech. So there's a couple of different organizational styles you could use for an informative speech. There's the chronological. Main points are delivered according to when they happened and could be traced on a calendar or a clock. So oftentimes when someone is giving a presentation on someone's life, they might do it chronologically. If you're talking about the steps of a process, that also might be chronologically. Topical organizational style, I think, is what you're going to use mostly. It's engaged when main points of your speech center on ideas that are more distinct from one another. So you kind of just order them in a way that makes sense. It's just a logical progression. So like the migraine, for instance, for that speech, it makes sense to talk about what causes the migraine, then what types of migraines are there, then what can you do to treat the migraine. So just think about how logically it means it to flow. So the spatial speech arranges main points according to their physical and geographic relationships. So that's not going to be very relevant for this class, but think about if you go into something like marketing and you are to give a presentation on the sales of a particular product or a particular branch or division of a business, then you might do that spatially. You might do that geographically. So for persuasive speeches, you would take a slightly different approach in organization. A comparative organizational pattern can be employed when you need to discuss similarities and differences between two or more things and talk about why one might be better than the other. A problem solution is you state the problem that may be facing people, and then you say this is what you can do to take action and solve that problem. Causal informs the audience about cause and effects. And Monroe's motivated sequence is one I think that we see most often in the real world. In that organizational pattern says you get the attention of the audience, you establish a need, you satisfy that need, you do visualization, and then action. So I always use the example of commercials. And so I think of usually, for example, a proactive commercial. And those commercials take you exactly through this process. So they get your attention, and typically a lot of times they use a celebrity of some sort, or if they don't use a celebrity, they use someone that has a severe case of acne. So they get your attention, and then they establish a need, and then they'll say something like, do you ever have breakouts that you can't get rid of? And everybody's sitting there thinking, yeah, I do. I mean, sometimes they're not visible, but look how they zoomed in on Katy Perry and you could see hers. So you see, okay, yes, I have this need. Have you ever wanted clear skin? Of course I have. There's the need. And then they satisfy that need. So then they show you that, okay, I use these products for a certain amount of time, and then all of these issues that I had were corrected. So I've gotten your attention, I've told you that you have a problem, and then I solved the problem for you. And then it's visualization, and they're like, okay, look how wonderful my skin is today. Look how beautifully my skin is healed using these products. And then it's take action. If you too want clear skin, call this number or go to this website today and order this product. So a lot of our commercials that we see on TV follows Monroe's motivated sequence, but this can be applied to a lot of different things, especially policy speeches where you're wanting to change a policy. It can also be with behaviors. If you're convincing people to take on a healthier lifestyle, this is a very easy organizational pattern to use. So connecting your main points, like I talked about earlier, it's so important that your audience clearly can follow what you're doing in your speech, that you're holding their hand point by point and they clearly see where you're going. So one way to do that is through signposts and transitional statements. Signposts are words or gestures that allow you to move smoothly from one idea to the next throughout your speech. And transitional statements are phrases or sentences that lead from one distinct but connected idea to another. another. So think of this. So in my sample outline that I provided on migraines, you might begin, first, I want to tell you some of the many causes of migraines. And then I would go on and talk about the first point. And then to go to the second point, I would say, now that we have discussed the causes of migraines, let's look at the various types of migraines. And then as I went to my third point, I would say, now that we've discussed causes and types, let's talk about possible treatments for migraines. So when you are clearly doing a signpost for each main point, then your audience knows exactly where you are in your speech. They know what points you've talked about, they know what points you're heading to, and they know exactly where you are. And it really helps them follow what you're saying. If an audience member is really trying to figure out what you're talking about and where you are in your speech, then they're missing some valuable information. So just line it out there for them very simple. Internal previews tell your audience what to expect. Summaries, of course, kind of summarize what you've talked about. Signposts keep listeners engaged and informed about where you are in the speech, and it makes the connections between one point and another. So outlines are a very common way of organizing a speech, and in this class you will use a formal outline to develop your presentation, and that's what you'll submit. There are two types of outlines. Your book gives you some examples of how to do an outline, and I'm just going to be completely honest and tell you I don't agree with their method. I don't agree with their format. So this is the outline structure that I'm a fan of and that I have provided for you in sample work in our class. So I would say that this is what I'm expecting of you guys in this course, is that main ideas are Roman numerals, subpoints are capital letters, more specific points are Arabic numerals, and that's your numbers. Lowercase letters denotes details, and lowercase Roman numerals are more specific details. Let's see. So also, it's not in here, but it is in additional notes that I've added in Canvas. I want to talk to you briefly about rules of outlining. So one rule of outlining that I want to make sure that you're aware of is that if you have a 1, you have to have a 2. So when you're doing your outline, if you have a Roman numeral 1, you have to have a Roman numeral 2. If you have a capital A, you have to have a capital B. If you have a number 1, you have to have a number 2, and so on. Now, you can add C's, 3's, D's, all of those things in as you need to. But the rule of outlining is that it has to be in pairs. I also encourage you to indent like you're seeing here on the screen. It really makes it a lot easier to follow your points and subpoints if you indent each level within your outline. So I hope this helps. As I mentioned, I am adding some additional resources on Canvas about this. I'm also adding a video on how to use a concept map to break a broad topic down into specific main points and subpoints that I think will help you in your speech development.